Thanks.
Bro.
Wait, what episode? Episode 4 or 5? This is episode 5.
Hold on, let me
Episode
check.
5.
Is it 5?
Hold on.
Bro.
Episode PaperTrail podcast.
Episode 5. Jesus
PaperTrail.
Christ.
Is it episode 5?
It's episode 5.
Episode 5. Can you
Let's
believe
get
it?
bro?
We're here, bro.
Dude.
We're here. You want to spit
First thing
something?
I want to say. Oh, you gonna spit? You gonna spit?
No, you got to do the spitting for episode 5.
You want me to spit something? Hey. Episode 5. News week. Arms are high. Ready to fly. It's your boy.
Hey.
It's your guy.
It's your boy, Pap and Grant.
Hey. Back at it
But
again.
we're not rappers.
We're nerds.
I'm not, bro. I'm not a nerd. I'm just
I'm
the
not,
average
bro. Stop.
average person, bro. Just the average person.
I'm gonna copy you and put on my glasses, bro.
Hey, these palms are sweaty. Knees weak, arms are heavy. There's vomit on my sweater already, so I took it off. My
It's hot.
spaghetti. All right.
Oh,
Welcome
dude,
to episode 5. Fix this of the Paper Trail podcast, where everything has a paper trail, so we follow that, and that's how we get our content. Today is
Yes,
a special
sir.
day because
As always.
we're going to be talking about cool stuff. That's why it's special. Always
That's why it's
special. Grant,
Man,
how have you been, man? It's
Dude,
been a full
while.
week.
I wanted to say, man, 5 episodes in, and when I first came to you with this idea of like, let's starting a podcast, I was so nervous because I was like, maybe I'm not ready for this. And, you know, Pap, I'm not gonna lie, you're a smart man. You're kind of intimidating. I didn't think I'd have the chops enough to spit it with you, bro. But 5 episodes in, and I'm proud of this. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. You know, when I was becoming a father for the first time, I went into the hospital and I was like shaking. So I told the nurse, I said, I don't know if I'm ready to be a father. And she said, nobody's ready. Now get in the operating room and help your wife. So, lesson learned in life. You're never going to be ready. You just got to jump in. Just do whatever it is that you want to do. If it doesn't work, keep trying. If it works, keep trying. That's pretty much the formula.
Life lessons from Pap, dude.
Yeah. Life lessons from, being passed down from me being stressed out in the operating room and not knowing how to be a father there. By the way, I still don't know how to be a father. It's been 2 years and I still don't have the formula down yet.
Trial and error.
Yeah,
Oh, God.
exactly. Man.
We've had some cool guests too. We had Neswin. We've had DIY Sec.
Yep.
Who's next going to be Coat? Probably.
A man
It's finally time to
himself.
have Coat on, dude.
Coat. 0X
So-
Coat. You guys are going to see exactly what we're talking about. Coat is a genius of a different kind. He's like a different breed.
Mhm.
You'll see what I'm talking about. I don't want to spoil it for you.
He's built different. He's him.
He's built different. He one thing I love about Coat is he goes through the history of technology before going into the technology.
Mhm.
It's a lot easier to understand the need for that technology. Well, backing up, right? Everything that's created that is valuable generally has a reason for that thing to be created, or else it's not really valuable. So knowing the history of something, it's easy to understand, okay, that's why this was needed. And then you start to understand how the technology works. And it adds more excitement and value. Coat's that kind of guy. He'll go into the history and all that other stuff.
So excited, dude. Coat rules.
Yeah, man. So what's going on in the threat intel? You guys know Grant is all into the threat intel. He's spying on all of you guys. You don't even know it, but he's spying.
All of your information.
Everything.
Okay?
He has your social security
Seen it
number.
all.
He's you.
Man,
He's
I
you
could
right
be
now.
you today. And buy a house in your name. Dude, I spend more time on the dark web than I do the clear web nowadays, and it's really it's taking a toll on me, bro. It's taking a toll on me. I'm tired.
I bet. What's some things you've been seeing recently?
So I was looking for a topic for this week's podcast, and I just looked up Bleeping Computer and started going through the files. And first thing I saw was Port of Seattle breached by Riceta ransomware, and I am on their DLS every day. And I don't know why I didn't see this. I guess it just slipped my mind, but went on there the other day, and there it was. Port of Seattle, a bunch of social securities, a bunch of passports, IDs. Riceta's a demon, bro. They're
Yeah,
they're one of the top ones.
that's wild. So it's ransomware that hit them. So did you,
Mhm.
not to dox you or anything, right? So did you have to offer, cyber insurance to the Port of Seattle or anything?
Thank God they were not one of our clients. Because I don't know how we would have handled this one. What is with airports and ransomware, man? Is that like it's airports and hospitals that just get hit so bad?
Yeah, they're like, I mean, if you think about it, right? They're technically part of the like the critical infrastructure.
Hmm.
Airports are necessary for people to travel from point A to point B. Hospitals are necessary for the lives of people. So
Hmm.
I think they're valuable targets because of that. I have
Hmm.
seen other kinds of attacks like banks and other things, but I mean, if you stop all flights for one day, you're affecting not only citizens but also businesses that might be buying
Yep.
these business class flights.
Oh my gosh, dude. So for those who don't know, Riceta also is pretty big in the news whenever they hit Insomniac Games. For those who don't know Insomniac Games, they made Ratchet and Clank, Spider-Man.
Yep.
That was a big one. I actually went through their file listing and saw like parts of the Wolverine game that's in development. Some really early test footage. It's crazy stuff. That's I actually really feel bad for Insomniac. Not so much Seattle. Shout out to my Seattle folk.
Seattle, we love you guys. We love Insomniac too because I'm still addicted to Spider-Man, man. It's been a while. And I'm talking about, Miles Morales part 1. Like I haven't even
That's still
touched
the
part
first
2
one.
yet. Exactly. I'm still addicted to I think I've played the story mode like 4 times already. Starting over. It's that impressive. So, Insomniac, good job. Sorry you got hit in the past, but things
Hit
happen.
hard.
Things
So
happen.
I told my company like once that Insomniac happened, I was like, you need to watch out for these guys. And sure enough, they started popping up like crazy. Um, Not as bad as Alpha V and Scattered Spider, which Scattered Spider was the one who hit the GTA with like a fire stick.
Yep. Oh
That kid
yeah.
was insane.
Yeah, that was interesting because I got to talk to some of the guys involved on Telegram.
Oh
Um,
dang.
at the time, well, shortly after that happened, and I found some interesting. I found some interesting things. So I don't know if it's true or not, but I did
Mhm.
hear that it wasn't just a fire stick, right? The
Mhm.
person who used the fire stick had to actually pay an employee to give him the information. So
Oh dang.
the hack was pretty much bribery
Mhm.
into getting data, and then they then use the fire stick as like a way to,
Log in.
yeah, log in and view that data. Um, but it wasn't necessarily a sophisticated attack, is what I'm trying to say.
Mhm.
What
It
I
was
heard is that
Insider.
it was Insider, and Insider did it for an incentive. Um, you know, Now, for those of you guys who are like, "Oh, Pap's being a snitch," I'm a full snitch. Just
I'm
gonna let you know. Just gonna let you know that I'm a snitch on everything.
auto
So,
play, bro.
bro, yeah, no, hey, don't tell me things. I'm just gonna let you know that. Um, but that's what I heard. I don't know if that's true or not, and I'm not here to spread any kind of rumors, but that is what I heard, and that adds another level of complexity to the type of attack because
Mhm.
how do you protect against employee bribery, right? So, and it's really
Isn't
hard to do
Insider's
that.
like one of the most dangerous threat to companies, right?
Right, right. If I go to an employee and say, "I'll give you $1 million right now to give me, sensitive information about the company," there's going to be one employee that agrees
I'll
to
take
that,
it.
right?
Dang.
Um, it's hard to protect against that. Now, as a company, you could offer more money, an incentive for the employees to keep their job. But again, it's hard to detect if
Mm-hmm.
an employee is even going through this kind of thought process.
Oh my gosh.
All right. I mean, think
What was the
about it.
next transition? What was the
You-
next I'm lost. I'm so tired. I woke up feeling sick today, but the show must go on, bro.
Oh man, hope you feel better.
Thank you.
So I came across an interesting story, and actually got pinged today.
Mhm.
Actually, like I mentioned, 10 minutes before we went live, right? So someone pinged me and said, "Hey, did you hear about the pagers exploding?" And I was like, "Pagers exploding? What's happening?" So I Googled it, popped up on an article from Security Week, and headlines like hundreds of pagers exploded in Lebanon and Syria
Mhm.
in a deadly attack. So, quick skim through the article. What I have extracted is pretty much, um, the Iran backed military, I guess, was advised to not use cellular devices for obvious reasons. So they opted to
Mhm.
use pagers to communicate with each other, and these pagers were exploding in their pockets. What seems to be a supply chain issue. Now, whether it's a cyber issue or not is still up for questioning. But it did make me wonder, with the supply chain issues going on, it makes me wonder if that was a planted um, thing, right? Like if that
Mhm.
was something that was intentional, or if that was pure accident. You have something like
Mhm.
the Galaxy Note 7 that was exploding on pure accident, right? But when we talk about supply chain security, we there are things like hardware trojans that exist, and hardware trojans are essentially hard coded trojans in a like computer chip. So
Mhm.
imagine when you order your processor, right? Your computer chip. It could be Intel, it could be AMD, whatever you want to order. That has to come from somewhere. And there are, in fact, you can YouTube, hardware Trojan. You'll see like these videos of like places in like Thailand where they have these unsafe working conditions, and they're kind of refurbishing these processors and trying to mimic and make it look like legitimate processors, but they've been tampered with. Well, that's the idea
Dang.
of like hardware Trojan. You tamper with the processor, you make it look legitimate, and you ship
Mhm.
it off. Some of these might have, logic, a logic that will send data back to, I don't know, some kind of server. Some of them have a ticking time bomb where it just blows up. In this case, whether it was planned or not, it ended up blowing up. So it's an interesting thing. The current best way to protect against supply chain attacks for vendors, people who actually use these uh, supply chain companies right now, is contractual language. So you're
Mhm.
basically saying, uh, I trust that this is going to be integral. This chip is going to be integral to the original product. If it's not, I get to sue you, kind of thing. And if this company, you know, if you trust this company is going to do what they say they do. There's nothing you can do to stop them from trying to hide something in that chip. So as long as there's no double checking or things like that, um, things are going to slip through. If there is double checking, again, once a chip's been assembled, to try to find something wrong with that chip is very difficult. So there's an issue, and it is a gap in supply chain because there's no sure way to determine whether something's been tampered with unless you go and inspect it thoroughly,
Mhm.
which again makes it
There's so
difficult if
many chips
something's been
coming through,
assembled.
yeah.
Yep.
So the Galaxy phone that exploded, it was the lithium ion battery that was just, I guess, was it the altitude that made it get hot, or
No. So actually, I had a Galaxy 7. It did not explode, but I did have one, which is funny.
it's not explode?
Um, it did not explode. No, but uh, every phone gets hot. You know that. And
Mhm.
so with any phone that gets hot today, you'll notice that the phone will literally say it's
Overheating.
hot, and it would literally just like your function would stop working. So the phone itself
Mhm.
would shut down. So the reason why that happens is because there's think of like a mini thermometer, we'll say,
Mhm.
inside the phone. And when it gets to a certain temperature, that triggers like a safety mode. And so that safety mode is the phone basically saying, we're shutting down. We're not
Yeah.
gonna overheat. The Note 7 had a faulty safety, so it would overheat and the safety wouldn't, trigger anything to cool it down. Samsung's response to that when I had a Note 7 was I got a pop up on my phone one day basically saying return your phone. And then it just wouldn't, then it wouldn't charge anymore past like 15% after that. So, which is also interesting because I learned that, companies can remotely destroy phones. Because that phone, it just, at one point, it wouldn't charge past 15%. And then when I tried to call in, they were like, that's purposely done to force you to bring your phone back. And then eventually just stopped charging at all. And so I had to like return the phone. So they just remotely turned off charging. It was interesting.
What the heck?
Yeah, it was interesting. And it was a software related stop.
So you couldn't like bypass it or anything?
Well, I wasn't smart enough to try at that time. Yeah, that was forget what year that was, but I definitely was not smart enough to try to reverse engineer it, which it probably was as simple as deleting the function that stopped the charging.
I think I probably could have just rolled back the update or something.
Well, you couldn't. So it was like you didn't even get an option to update. It was just forced. Yeah, it was a forced update. So I did learn that, companies can force, right? If Apple wanted to right now, they can push an update and force everyone to go through it. Samsung, same. So interesting stuff that I learned.
Do you really own anything nowadays? Like, honestly?
Did I what?
Do you really own anything? Like, do you truly own it anymore?
That's another good point. A few months ago, Funimation, which was known to like host animated like entertainment, we'll say, they had it was more of like a monopoly, right? So Crunchyroll, which is another animated platform, purchased Funimation. And during that purchase, Funimation announced that anyone who had purchased anything through their platform, so not subscription, but you can purchase like cloud-based movies or whatever. Anyone who's purchased that's all going away. So
dang,
you lose access to that data. So I'm not saying to pirate things, but I'm sure people have already pirated a lot of that stuff in order to keep their own purchases. So then you ask, with the shift to cloud, are we really owning the data that we think we own?
Yeah. Dang. Especially like whenever a game store shut down and you can't go back and re-download those games. Like, do you really own it then?
No. And it goes back with the same thing with supply chain. We just trust that the vendor won't do anything sketchy. And most of the time it works. Sometimes it ends up like FTX, where our trust is abandoned and they run off with all of our money. But it's hard to say. Security in itself is about trust, if you think about it. So it's hard to kind of combat anything outside of the trust element.
So, my gosh. Simultaneously, Lebanon and Syria Tuesday killing at least 9 people, including a young girl, and wounding thousands more. And they're talking so they're saying that lithium ions don't necessarily just explode, they melt and catch on fire. So
yes, so it depends. So yes, it's true that lithium ion batteries will normally burst into flames first. And in fact, I've seen some that literally just burn into flames. Like they don't actually explode. They just get burned up. But I've also, seen some experiments where someone took a knife and just jammed it into a lithium battery and it sparked and kind of popped and actually did explode. So I'm not saying that, these pagers had knives jammed through them, but I'm just saying that an explosion is possible. What it would most likely be small. But more than likely they will engulf in flames versus exploding. Same thing with vapes, right? I witnessed, I think I told you that story, did I?
I don't think so. You saw someone vaping?
Oh, it was more than that. It was when I used to work. I used to work at a hotel, and I worked at the front desk with a guy from he was from China, and him and I were like tag team. Like I'd call him Lee, right, and he called me Tucker or Carter, not Tucker, but he'd call me Carter. We were a tag team. We worked on the same shift like pretty much every day. So we kind of knew, and we kind of switched things up. Sometimes I would purposely grab like sushi, like ramen, and he would purposely order like fried chicken. So it was fun. But he would vape a lot. And at the time, vaping was more accepted in the US. It's like banned in a lot of places now. It was more accepted in the US, and we're like at the front desk, and we're kind of doing our thing, just tending to these guests and everything. And I remember just sitting there, and I heard a pop,
Bro.
and I was like, so I turned over to him. And before I got to say anything, I heard a few more pops. And by this time, he's like jumping over the desk and like screaming. And I'm like, what is happening? And so I look at his pants, and it's like pop, like literally just engulfs in fire. And there's a bunch of popping going on. So I hop over the front desk, and I ran and like grabbed his shoes, threw them off, grabbed his pants, like ripped them out down. And I threw the pants, and the pants was like popping like a lot, and then just like burned up. And his leg was like black, like burned up. And by this time he's in like his underwear burned up, and there are like guests running over to him, and he's like screaming, like saying it burns. And so I told someone to like call the ambulance, and they come. And long story short, they grab his pants, and they pull out his vape, and the vape had a lithium ion battery. And the battery itself was the one that was blowing up when it kept popping several times, and each pop would burn his leg. So he was like, and screaming, and he was wearing these skinny jeans. So it was legit stuck. And then after, he did recover nicely, which is good. But I remember that day. He was like, I thought I was going to die, honestly. And I honestly had no idea what I was doing. I just ripped his pants off because it was, and that sounds weird, but because he was holding his pants and it was like catching on fire. So I just instinctively thought, okay, maybe this is the issue. Rip these off. But yeah, that's my story on lithium ion batteries and how I know that they will explode.
Was that his incentive to like stop vaping?
He didn't stop vaping.
He didn't stop.
Yeah, his issue. Yeah, what he said was he believed that it did not have enough air circulation to keep the battery cool, and because he was wearing skinny jeans, it popped. So he never actually kept a vape in his pocket anymore. He would put it in like the back office, and then whenever he would need to vape, he would run back there and vape and run to the front. But the lesson learned for him was never to put it in his pocket.
Oh my gosh. Anyway, the vape story.
Yeah, that was, man. So that was my experience in knowing that lithium ion batteries can explode. So not just catch on fire, but I do know that they really can pop and explode.
My Lord, man. I wanted to circle back. So earlier we were talking about insider threats being really bad. Another thing that I've read a lot of is Kerberoasting. Threat actors will get into the system and Kerberoast to find a way to privask to admin.
Yep.
I've seen so many videos on Kerberoasting. I've read so many different things on Kerberoasting. I can't wrap my head around the process of Kerberoasting. I don't. What does that mean?
Got it. So, are you familiar with how Kerberos works?
No.
The authentication service. Then a user authenticates with the authentication service, and that authentication service gives them a like a ticket granting ticket. It's what it's called, and then they go to the ticket granting server with the ticket granting ticket in order to present that ticket to the ticket granting server. The server receives that ticket and says, okay, you have authenticated with the authenticated server. So here's your ticket to access the resource. And then you're getting access to a resource. I call that the three-headed, we call it like a three-headed dragon, because first you go to the first head, the authentication server. Then you go to the next head, which is the ticket granting service. And then the last head is the resource that you're going to be going to. So, well, the thing that grants you authorization, which the name, this is, I learned Kerberoasting back in like 2018. So this is like 6 years of just being disconnected. Kerberoasting attack is pretty much when so after you grant authentication, so after you authenticate with the authentication service, you're
Hmm.
issued like a ticket, the ticket granting ticket. That ticket granting ticket should have your hash password in it because when you present it to the ticket granting server, it needs to verify that the ticket um, is correct.
Hmm.
So it will have to match some kind of hash in order to understand, okay, this is correct. This person is who they say they were because at some point they entered the right credentials and those credentials were hashed and that hash matches the hash that I have in my database. So that needs to happen. So Kerber roasting is basically intercepting that ticket and you want to open that ticket to grab a hash. And then you basically copy that hash offline. And what you're going to do is keep running possible combinations of passwords
Hmm.
and you're hashing the password as you go. So you'll do like password one and you hash that. And if it matches the hash that you pulled, that's a match. Password two, try to match it. Password three, try to match it. You just keep doing that until you find a match.
Hmm.
Once you find a match, you can pretty much use that to log in as the user, right? Because all you need is a password. So you go to the authentication service, then you log in with your password, and then that service now is like, oh, well, you have the right password. So here's your new ticket granting ticket that you could bring to the ticket granting service. So that's how Kerber roasting works in Kerberos, if that makes sense.
Jeez. Who came up with this stuff? Seriously.
So back then, and I'm gonna butcher the history, but bear with me, right? So, when Microsoft was building out Active Directory, at one point there was so the way that authentication worked was you would just log in, like
Hmm.
username, password, you're in, and then Windows eventually evolved to having like a SAM file where hashes were stored in the SAM file, and that was used to check whether the password was correct or not. Then when Active Directory was, really being a thing, uh, at first, so at one point, you had to use like a different service in order to send passwords. So when you log into a domain, um, that domain would have to, verify and all these things. If ugh, I'm gonna kind of butcher this, but back then a lot of that stuff would happen in plain text, and then what would happen is the domain would have like a hash version of the password, but you would have to enter your password in like plain text, and it would like hash it at some point. But and then the hashes would be matched and things like that. And then LDAP came, and then there was an issue where that hash needs to be sent to LDAP in plain text. So there's a lot of like random issues going on with like authentication and handling passwords. So Kerberoasting came out as a means to solve a lot of that issue with authentication and authorization. So it has worked pretty well for the most part. Kerberoasting is a thing, but
Hmm.
um, more people use Active Directory now. Well, there's two pieces to Kerberoasting. So more people use Active Directory now internal, which means you need access to like some kind of like network in order to, it's like post exploitation, right? You need access to a network in order to get the ticket, the ticket granting ticket. The second part is you need to also have be able to crack that hash, which means the password that the user had needs to be weak enough for you to crack it once you're in. The third part is if they're constantly changing their password, well, now you need to keep grabbing tickets and getting a new hash if they change their password. So there's a bunch of pieces there with Kerberos now that makes Kerberosting difficult.
Difficult.
Yep.
Do you, at your job, when people try to break into your network, do you see people trying the Kerberoasting method anymore, or is it become kind of obsolete?
So in order to, Kerberoasting is a post exploitation technique,
Mhm.
meaning if someone's Kerberoasting, they already got into your network. You can't Kerberoast before getting into
Before
the
you get
network.
in.
Right, unless the Active Directory is like hosted to the public, which is usually not done. So if someone was trying Kerberoasting, then I already have an issue because they got into our network.
They got in, yeah.
Right, so that's the issue. So no, I have not seen Kerberoasting ever in my life been attacked, but I have seen many other attacks. Like the most common I see is SQL injection and cross-site scripting on a lot of our web apps. Those are the most common types of attacks I see. I sometimes see like random other attacks. Sometimes I just see random characters sent over. I think maybe just like an automated system just trying random stuff. But I actually, so in my company, I've been, I would say, blessed or grateful to, see that all attacks have been prevented. And anytime I have I wouldn't even say it's successful. The suspicion that something has been successful, I'm quick to jump on it. So if someone uses like SQL injection and they send like a sleep payload, for example, and then I notice another payload comes from that same IP, like maybe 30 seconds later, they may have not gotten in, but the time difference is suspicious. So I will take that payload and try it on one of our dev servers and see if it actually will work. If it doesn't work, chances are it won't work in prod. But I still take the appropriate measures to add more strict security on that, just in case. So I'm not the kind of guy to sit there and say, didn't work, let's ignore it. But I will go and add some stuff there.
Jeez.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. It's a hard game.
And this is why blue team, you think, is definitely paid. Defense is definitely paid more than offense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
more.
How can I word this? How can I word this? I've worked in both. Blue team gets paid. Blue team was paid the highest in my experience, but also when looking at job applications that post their salary, blue team salaries are posted at a higher rate than red team salaries. And I think that is because of the level of critical thinking that you need to have when it comes to blue team. Red team, it's you get to choose the attack vector. Blue team needs to take every attack vector and consider all. So there's two different landscapes there. Yeah. So anyone's willing to get in cybersecurity, blue team, you'll learn a lot about red team. You'll get paid for red team, and it'll be fun. Trust me. Blue team doesn't get as much credit, but it's a really fun thing to work in.
So a lot of stuff that I've been reading lately, and a lot of stuff that's kind of been being pushed, is a lot of encryption and the encryption process and how it works. RSA, Diffie-Hellman, which, going back to your video on RSA and how you went into the history of the Diffie-Hellman and how those two guys met and worked together, it pushed me above every other student in my classroom when it comes to this encryption process. So thank you, Pap. You're doing out here doing the Lord's work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I have a video plan on Diffie-Hellman. That series is eventually going to lead into the cryptanalysis attack, and I thought it would be pretty cool to get one of the guys that I work with. I won't say his name, but he invented the cryptanalysis attack. So it'd be cool to get him on a call and that'd be kind of like the ending of that series to demonstrate how it works and how to crack different ways to crack some of these cryptographic algorithms.
The finale, bro.
That'd be pretty fun.
So from World War II with the Enigma machine and to now with crazy, weird encryption process from Caesar cipher and all the other things that have come before, why is encryption so important in cybersecurity? And is it important to learn how to encrypt and decrypt and the different processes behind it?
Yeah. So actually, interesting enough, it actually was not important for us civilians at one point. Encryption was, back with Caesar cipher, actually before Caesar cipher, right? When people just rotate letters, you have like ROT 13. I actually make a joke saying I use ROT 26. You just rotate every letter 26 times, and there you go, the same exact letter again. But the idea was, the person who wins in war is the one who can keep all their data secret. Basically saying, if I can communicate with you in a way where you, the enemy, can't understand our plan, then I win.
Yeah.
Right. If I have two people on, let's use country X. If I have one person on one side of country X, the other person on the other side, and we need to ambush one person, and I have a cell phone, the other person has a cell phone, and I'm able to talk to them and say, "Hey, I'm watching him. He's facing you right now." And the other guy, person A is like, "Okay, he's facing me, so you creep up towards him. His back is turned to you. He's getting ready to turn around. He's like, you turn around, pretend like you're a civilian. I'm gonna creep up on him. His back's turned to me. Well, you have this guy outnumbered. I mean, he
Yeah.
could focus on one person, but he can't look two different directions at the same time, for example. And if he doesn't intercept that communication, there's no way he's gonna know your plan.
Yeah.
And in this case, if he does intercept your communication, it's encrypted. So he doesn't know what it even means. So you're still, imagine someone says, someone gives you a letter that's jarbled up. So you know that there's an enemy, but you don't know what direction they're coming from. You're still at a loss. So
Yeah.
the idea was, okay, if we can secure communication and send it back and forth, we can control the battlefield. We win the war. And we see that now, right? Like the best way to cheat in a lot of things is to just have someone on the other end, like giving us the answers. Um, so it was important for that. It started to move over to the enterprise side when technology started really booming, like in the late 1990s. So when websites and other things started to become, when websites and everything started to be developed, security wasn't really thought of. It wasn't really a
Mhm.
thing. And then when security was starting to become prevalent or apparent that we need security, um, there needed to be a solution in order to protect our data. And instead of creating a new solution, we just took existing solutions that were out there, which was encryption. So that's how we ended up with the encryption that we have today. And encryption pretty much just builds on itself. So like RSA and Diffie-Hellman would never exist if the issue of the public key infrastructure didn't exist. Because that issue existed, that's how RSA, Diffie-Hellman, and also elliptic curve cryptography.
Mhm.
That's how those were created, and that's why those exist today. That makes sense. Same thing with DES, 3DES. The reason why AES was created was because 3DES had a quote unquote backdoor. The story, so there's a rumor and there's an actual story. The rumor is that NSA had a backdoor to 3DES. The real
Mhm.
story is that NSA found out how to break 3DES. And they didn't want to give that information to the enemy. So they had to keep it secret.
Mhm.
Um, and then AES came as a way to be essentially a stronger version of the data encryption standard. So hope that makes sense.
So many ways to just lock and hide your data, and it's just and
Yeah.
then there's so many ways to break it. I can't.
Yep. And now we're moving to lattice-based encryption, which is
Mhm.
very different from the standard math. Think of like points in a like just a space. It could be a vector space. It could be like multi-dimensional. It could be single dimensional. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that like I pick a few points, I shift some numbers, and the only way you can get the decrypted information is if you pick the exact same points as me and shift the exact same numbers or have the decryption key. So you can imagine if I have a big enough field and I tell you to pick a random point and shift some numbers, chance
It's
of you
gonna be
doing
very
that is
difficult.
very slim. Exactly. Very slim.
Difficult.
Yep. You can just keep trying, but
Oh my
good luck
god.
with that.
So is encryption one of like your favorite things to study, because you seem to know a lot about it and you seem to really be passionate about it?
Yeah, let's see if I can get you guys a book. One second.
Uh-oh. Book recommendation part 2. He's got them recommendations, boy.
I got two actually. So
Uh-oh.
one, this is something that I read a lot, applied cryptography. I'm pretty sure I've read this whole thing already. The other one is post quantum cryptography. So this is for quantum based systems, how to protect
Mhm.
against those systems. That one I have not finished. I'm still going through it. It is a lot more complex than regular encryption. It goes through some math that I need to stop and kind of go through like Khan Academy and stuff and learn, because there are
To
like
learn it.
examples like error correcting codes, for example, where it's pattern based. Well, you can understand that in a basic example, but what if I gave you a really complex example of an error correcting code? That is difficult, and there's a specific formula that you can use to guess the next pattern. And I usually stop there and I start learning some of the formulas that I could use to do things. But I like it. I think it's going to be a critical point of security over the next, well, forever for one,
Mhm.
but definitely over the next few years. Um, what's the point of taking data from a database if it's encrypted and the attacker doesn't know how to decrypt it?
Yeah.
Well, the attackers, they're stopped. They're stuck.
Hmm.
By the time they decrypt it, we can just change all the passwords, so it doesn't matter anyway.
And you get a completely different hash. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in this case, it would be hashed, not encrypted. But yeah,
Jeez. I don't understand encryption.
so,
I have so much to learn. Oh,
so the big thing with encryption is basically trying to do a math problem that no one else can solve. That's it.
I
That's
can't
it.
even do math problems that everyone can solve. So I'm cooked. I'm straight cooked.
Yeah, it's fun. It is a very interesting. It is interesting, but in addition to doing a math problem that people can solve, the things that have come about encryption is very creative. So, um, you'll see when I release the video on Diffie-Hellman. It's one of my favorite public key encryptions because usually encryption requires taking your public key and sharing it with another party, and that party shares their public key with you.
Mhm.
Diffie-Hellman is a little different, where both parties choose a number, and that number is going to be used to derive each other's public key. And then, in order to generate their private key, they just do some math with that same number they chose. So,
Mhm.
the only people who know their own private key are the ones who did the math. So, if an attacker tries to, you know, if the attacker grabs the data and he try to decrypt it, they can't decrypt it without knowing the math that each party had did themselves.
Mhm.
So the way it sounds confusing, but when I release the video, I'll try to make
You'll
it as
clear it up.
simple as possible and clear it up. But it's a really cool concept. It's a way to like derive a public and private key without having to send them ahead of time, kind of thing.
Mhm. Dang. Man, we've touched on Riceta, Seattle, Kerberoasting,
Yeah, we touched on a
lithium
lot.
ion batteries, and now a little bit of encryption. So would you say that encryption studying is important for everyone getting into cyber? You should know a little bit about it, like the private key, the public key, the RSA, the Diffie-Hellman.
Yeah, I'll say this. It's an undervalued niche or
Mhm.
underappreciated niche. Usually, especially if you're going to school for ethical hacking or red team, you learn how to get a hash from a database. But what do they teach you after that? Put it in Hashcat or put it in John the Ripper.
Mhm.
In fact, I can probably ask 10 hackers how John the Ripper or Hashcat works, and maybe the experienced ones will definitely know because you're just matching a hash. But the beginner ones most likely won't know. Now, even with that hash matching, there are things like man in the middle where you can intercept data, but it's encrypted, right,
Mhm.
with the in the TLS process, and it's sent through an encrypted session or like a like an authenticated session, encrypted with AES. So it's like symmetric key inside the session, but the session is created with public key. So it's a pretty weird concept, but the reason why you can't view that data is because of that encryption, and not many people understand how that works,
Mhm.
and how that that encryption piece would work. But theoretically, if you intercept the data and you don't, you're not looking to send like a faulty message, but you're looking to just read the data. So if you intercept it, copy it, and you're able to decrypt the message, well, you can read that information, right? Now, it's not easy to decrypt that message at all. In fact, 9 out of 10 people probably aren't going to be able to do it. But if you do learn the math behind AES, learn the math behind, RSA, Diffie-Hellman, you could, theoretically, you could crack it when quantum computers come out and you notice that someone's using AES, we'll say 128, which is probably like the bare minimum to kind of protect against a quantum computer. Now, I say quantum computer, but just know that they're out. But I'm talking about when it's pulling like 3,000 plus qubits from memory, which means it's faster than a binary computer. You can already crack. So there's a really old algorithm called Shor's algorithm. You can you can crack the public key system, which is the elliptic curve, Diffie-Hellman, RSA, in significantly less time. But then you're stuck with the AES issue. And if they're using a weak key size with AES and you know how to crack it, well, yeah, you can write up a script to just crack that as well if it's a smaller key size. And in this case, it would just be brute forcing instead of cracking. And boom, you can get in. Another thing you can do is things like cryptanalysis attacks or side channel attacks. So what people don't know is instead of actually cracking, like let's take a Windows computer. Instead of cracking we'll say hash of a password on a Windows computer, if you like, we'll say in a SAM file, if you're going to log in to a Windows computer, you can actually record the power output of the computer. And if they're not, sending random power signals to the computer, if you think about it, the computer will actually increase in power when it's doing some kind of verification check. So if it's like, okay, we need to check the hash on this, the power spikes a little bit to check like A, then I want to check like E, the power spikes a little bit. And then you just record those power spikes. And if you can grab the variable that's being output at the moment that the power spikes, you just have the full message that it's checking when it's like trying to hash through. So that's an example of like a side channel attack. I think that's like differential power analysis is the name of like an attack like that. But there are many types of attacks that you can do on cryptography that just are underappreciated, but are not only really cool, but still work today.
Yeah. Okay, if you're like me and you don't know what the heck Pap's talking about, then go check out his video. I'm going to go watch it again because...
Look at differential power analysis. And that will basically tell you, what you need to know. It's called DPA, the DPA attack. It's just looking at power spikes in a computer when the processor is performing calculations. In this case, the processor is performing encryption-based calculations. So you're measuring the power and you're getting the output based on these specific signals. And if you do it correctly, you know what the encrypted message is. So it's a type of side channel attack.
Jeez, that is awesome. It's interesting to hear you talk about that because I never would have like even looking at the power spikes of when it's going through the encryption process. Oh my gosh.
People overcomplicate a processor, but at its core, all it's doing is math. So it's just basically throwing, hundreds of thousands or hundreds of millions of humans in a room and telling them to do a math problem. And they're all working together at like rapid speed or something like that. But if you think about it, right, when you do math problems, I mean, it kind of works similar. Like you kind of, when you're thinking, that's when your brain's being worked really hard. When a computer's running these calculations, it's working really hard and it needs more power in order to, continue doing these calculations. So, but there are processors, companies, especially like Intel, AMD, and the latest processors, they do a good job at obfuscation. So what happens is they'll either optimize power output so it can still perform calculations at a low input, which is hard to read, or what they'll do is they'll throw in random spikes. So it won't be doing a calculation, just randomly spike. So you think that's a calculation, but it's not. So they do a good job of obfuscating that and making it harder to detect. But someone's on an older processor, then yeah, you can hit with a DPA.
Oh my gosh. They even thought of that. They even thought of a deterrent for that. That is crazy. Man.
Oh yeah. Yeah, encryption's interesting.
I just want to throw something random out there, but like what's the difference between like a regular AMD processor and like a Threadripper? Are Threadrippers mainly for like servers? Because I know Intel has something similar.
So they can be used on a computer, but you need a specific motherboard. I think Asus might make motherboards for that.
Mhm.
Threadripper has a lot of cores and uh, can perform multiple different processes, or can run multiple different processes at a time. So we'll say like it has like 1,000 cores versus
Mhm.
like an Intel processor that might have like, I think the average is like 12 cores, and then you have like your logical cores, which is like 36. But uh, pretty much your cores allow you to run multiple applications at a time. So when you open multiple browsers, or if you open Microsoft Word in a browser, for example, your cores allow that. Um, for those who don't know like how the core works, I won't get into the technical part of it, but if you, let's say you have one core and you open a web browser, and that web browser is running up resources on that processor, it's
Mhm.
using that core. And then if you want to open up another application, what happens is the processor has to like keep switching back and forth between the application and browser. So it needs to have something like a like temporary memory, like a page swap or something like that. And so it will have to like temporarily store data from your browser to switch over to Microsoft Word temporary store. So one core would make it really slow, as you can probably guess, has to keep jumping back and forth. Two cores allow it to run both applications
Both of
using
them.
less page swap. Um, and then the more cores, the better, because and then you now have logical cores, which now create some kind of like virtualization. Eh, Very similar to virtualization. I guess you could call it virtualization to run these other processors. So, one core can act as if it was like 2 to 3 cores, with this
Dang.
like kind of logical based segregation.
Uh-oh. Another video idea, Pap?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I wanted to do a video on, and this might jump into that, but no one actually talks about what happens when your computer, when you send. So, if I'm going to navigate to a website, there are videos out there that talk about how the web browser, queries the DNS servers and
Mm.
does like an A record lookup and then goes to the website. But no one actually talks about how your processor interacts with your network interface card, which then has to interact with internal APIs like the Win APIs or Linux based binaries
Mhm.
in order to send the message to your web browser for the web browser to get the instruction to go out and do something. So no one talks about that backend process. So I figured I'd make a video on that backend process and show what actually happens to your computer when you visit a website before it hits the browser,
That's awesome.
or
That's awesome.
things like that.
Now you're going deep, deep. You're deep
Yeah,
diving.
the deeper it's fun. It's fun to know how once you learn how everything. I don't even know how everything works, but the more you learn, the more fun it gets.
That's awesome, dude. I'm excited for that one. Man, I can't think of any random questions off the top of my head.
Oh no, that's fine.
I got the dehydration brain rolling, bro. I've been having to chug water all day.
Water, bro. Get a quick water break.
Uh, sip it up. If you're watching and you got some water near you, bro.
So tell me about you. You've been learning Java,
Mm.
um, in a cybersecurity context, so that's interesting. How have you been liking Java?
This is gonna sound weird, but I don't know. Maybe if it's just the software I'm using to compile the code, but I really like it. I kind of like it more than my Python class,
Interesting.
which is weird.
Yeah. So have you gotten to like getters and setters with Java, or are you just like fresh?
I just did my first project was focused on the scanner, which we talked about, like
Yep.
getting
User
input from the
inputs.
user. Yeah. He doesn't really go into like code formatting, like how the code is supposed to look. So I've been having to do that kind of on my own, and the book we have kind of sucks. So I've been watching videos on how could I translate this code for other people to use, because right now it just looks like a big block of words because I don't know how to format it
Yeah.
properly.
Yeah. It's difficult. I even like I'm not a developer myself, so I still struggle with like reusable code.
Mhm.
By struggle, I mean it when I'm really focused, especially a work project, I take a lot longer than a normal dev. But when I think about it, I think what's difficult is trying to make your function. Well, it depends on what you're going to make. If you're going to make a method or a function, and for those who don't know, in Java, a function is pretty much like a block of code. So it the code runs within a function. And then that function can become a method if you have a struct and that function references a struct, then we can call that a method. But when we're coding with that, trying to keep your variables as vague as possible and your functions as vague as possible is the hard thing. Instead of saying like, a function name hi, and then it says print hi, the function should be function print message, and then it should print message. And it's like, trying to keep things broad in that sense is so difficult.
So I guess that kind of brings me back to, you were learning Golang. Is Python still the most common language that you see when you're developing, or are you guys more switching to Golang now?
I switched to Golang, but that's just me. Where I work, it's a 90% Python shop. We use Python 3.11 for basically everything, front end, back end, APIs, routing services, like everything's run on Python. I think Golang has like maybe 1% Golang in that environment. And I think some dev just decided to just download a Golang library or something like that. It was like, but
try this.
Yeah, the scripts that I have are usually what I use to automate a lot of things at work, and sometimes I use Golang for that. Sometimes I use Python, just depends. Sometimes I'm tired of building structs, which is like the bane of Golang, and I just go to Python. But other times I love building structs, and I just go with that. But have you dabbled into Golang? If you're taking Java and you switch to Golang, let's say after your class, you'll probably notice a lot of similarities between Golang and Java.
Really? I really want to learn HTML. I don't know why. I feel like going on websites and then looking at the script that's running, and it's all encoded in HTML. I'm like, man, I want to learn what this is doing and how to break this and make it cooler or whatever.
So, yeah, you can learn HTML in 5 days.
Really?
I think so.
It's that like easy, or is it just that straightforward?
Straightforward. So when I say learn HTML, I don't mean learn every tag, but you can learn the syntax, which is pretty much all you need. And then from there, you just kind of know what tags are. And you'll know basic tags. Like if you see H1, you'll know that's like header, but like the first header. Like, if you see title tag, that's a title. If you see LI tag, then that's like a list. If you see like UL, I think that's like unordered list. So like you'll catch on really fast. I'd say. Let's just say my wife does not code at all. And in fact, she did not ever code, and she wanted to like design like a website, and she learned HTML in like a week and was able to do it. JavaScript was the thing that took her a lot longer to learn. I think she's still learning it. Actually, it's been a few months. But HTML was like she picked it up it was pretty simple. So a little encouragement there.
The most random thing is like when I first started getting into cyber and I wanted to learn coding, the first like series I bought, or like training series I bought, was C++. And I was like going in hard on some C++.
How was that?
Wow, this is so hard.
Really? So I run away from C++, and if you quiz me, I'm gonna get everything wrong about
everything
it.
wrong.
Yeah, I don't never needed it, and will continue to run away from it. But what makes it so hard for you?
So I got into it, and I got maybe like 2 lessons in, and I can't even remember. It's been so long. It's been almost 2 years now, and someone told me to like, dude, stop and just go learn Python first. So I stopped and switched to Python. But what I remember most was to like even call the like code, like before you could even start the code, you had to type in something. I can't remember what you had to type in. I'm trying to remember, but I'm gonna look it up.
yeah, it's I'm not even gonna get into that. I don't know. Like C++ is, like I said, I run away from it. Python, yes, learn, but the issue with Python is that when it comes to like data structures and algorithms with Python, uh, I guess I'll say if you're learning data structures and algorithms
Mm-hmm.
and you're using Python to learn, you might get confused because they call things differently. Like for example, Python uses things called lists,
Mm-hmm.
and they use a list with like brackets. But a list in Python is the same as like a dynamic array, but it's just called a list in Python. So that's what I mean. But it's like if you're using it, like let's say you use Java, those brackets would be an array. So it's learn Python, yes, but if you're like developing, I would probably recommend use a developing language. C plus plus, maybe not. Maybe like C.
See?
Something that's probably more straightforward than C
Yeah,
plus plus because that's a different beast. I hear
dude,
it's useful. I hear a lot of game devs,
yeah,
mention that they use it, but this guy Pap, I'm never
he's
gonna use
out.
it. I'm not even gonna look at it.
It's like C out, then you type in your code, and then C out, and then end line, and then you have the weird apostrophe. Yeah, Python was so much easier, and I don't think I might pick it back up once I'm done with Java, just because I bought the course and might as well finish it. But it was a lot
Yeah,
of just typing just to get a simple thing to display.
you might have an easy time with C also if you like
Yeah.
Python. C is Python was built on C, so
Hmm.
a lot of the syntax is very similar. Um, yeah, if you can read Python. So
You
when I
would
went over
see.
to C, I was able to just read it. I didn't have to relearn anything from a reading perspective. It was just easy for me to kind of go through and just say, okay, I know what this code is doing.
Yeah.
Writing it is where I had to like learn the syntax, but C is a lot straightforward versus C plus plus.
I remember that because I was doing a lab and I asked for your help, and I had to do like some Stack Overflow or something, like a buffer overflow, and the code I had to paste in was C, and you're like, oh, well, no wonder this code is wrong. And I was like, what? How do you know? You just like dissected it so quick.
Oh yeah, that's just. I think I told you my eyes like adjust to code after looking at it for so long.
Yeah.
So if it's like Golang, Python, C, I read it as if it's a book. I don't know.
Mhm.
It just makes a lot of sense to me.
Man, coding, hacking, Diffie-Hellman, Riceta, Seattle, lithium
Have you-
ion batteries. This podcast has been all over the place. There was no theme to this. We just talked.
Oh yeah, this was just back after guest speakers catching up,
Yeah.
talking about a few events that happened. I wanted to hear some little bit about Java from Grant as he's been taking a Java course, and Java's like a love-hate language. So I want to get your perspective on what you think about it. So all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've been studying mainly is Java and encryption, because we're doing a lot of encryption in school right now.
So
And
what exactly about encryption are you learning?
basically, so what you've talked about in that video was the Diffie-Hellman. We're starting off with the basics, starting off with asymmetric and symmetric keys, RSA.
Mhm.
I have a quiz tomorrow, so this should hopefully this conversation would help not make me feel like an idiot during the quiz. But
Yeah, just I think. Well, I guess have you found any part confusing about your class?
um, maybe the public key infrastructure and the private key. Like, I don't understand. Like, you have to give this person your public key, and then they also have a private key, but then they somehow intertwine together to unlock some block.
Okay, so yeah, that I see what you're saying. So, um, if I could probably try to make this as simple as possible. Let's say, um, let's say I have a lockbox,
Mm-hmm.
and there's only, and instead of using, so I have a key that opens the box, and instead of having that same key close it, I split it up into two keys. So what happens is they're both like key fobs. One fob you touch it, it can open a box, and the other fob you touch it, it can close the box.
Okay.
So what I do is the fob to open a box, that would be your private key. The fob to close the box would be your public key. So what I do is I have to run over to your house and I give you the box and I give you the fob to close the box. And I say, whenever you want to send me a message, write it, put it inside the box, close the box, and then mail it. That way no one can open the box but me, because I have the key that can open it. You get it? So I gave you my key that can close it. And once I receive the box, I can open it. Now, if you're like, okay, well, what about me? I want to get a message too. You grab your own box, your own key that closes it, and you run it over to me. Now I have your key, and I just put a message in your box, close it with your key, and give it to you. And you have the other key that opens the box. So that's public key encryption.
Bro, you know that aha moment?
Yeah.
That's me right now, bro.
All you have to do
That's
is
me right now, bro.
the person wants to send a message. All they have to do is close the box and send it to you. It's up to you to open the box. That's why you need to give them your key in order to close the box. That's what it's about. Ace that test. 100%.
Bro, I'm so happy you're getting a PhD, bro. Like, when are you just gonna become like a professor? Like Dr. Pap, bro. Dr. Pepper. You need to make merch. Dr. Pepper, and
Dr.
like have like a
Pepper.
soda on your like shirt.
I will. So I mean, I won't say Dr. Pepper because that's weird. Like the Papinator.
Pappenheimer.
But I am gonna have like I guess my future plan. Spoiler alert! I am gonna have like a like merchandise, like a hoodie. I'm not gonna tell you the name in case someone steals it, but it will have a name that basically represents the community of cybersecurity people. And I won't be like a professor in college because I have a thing where I'd like what I learn and what I share, I'd like that to be accessible to the public. So if I were to, teach something in college, it would be under the condition that I could then post that lecture to the public platform. And then I want to, create these full on like training series, like, AWS from zero to hero, like for example, and just put them out there on YouTube for anyone free to learn the material. And then if they want to get certifications, they can. But the idea is that everyone should have the ability to learn as long as they have access to the internet.
Yeah. Public knowledge, free knowledge.
Yep.
Man, what a show. Good to circle back. It's 5 episodes in. Like I said, I was hesitant to do this. I remember like when you first, for episode 1,
what I told you.
Like, episode 1, you're like, I have COVID. I was like, oh, we canceled, so I have another week to stress about this. And you're like, nah, we're gonna do this. I was like, oh,
we're gonna
shit.
do this.
All right,
remember what I told you. So Grant reached out to me and said, I'm thinking about doing a podcast. And I said, pick a date. I think that's what I said. And he gave a day and I said, okay, we're doing it that day. And it was just either we do it or we don't. There is no thinking about it. There's no planning. That's it. Here we are.
Here we are, bro.
Ending episode 5 on this podcast.
Soon to have that boy Coat, bro. I'm so, bro.
It's episode 6.
The perfect number for Coat too.
Yes, sir. Episode 6.
Excited, bro.
You're gonna meet Coat. We got to get Coat to freestyle.
Oh, I think he'll do it too.
No, he won't.
Coat's wild like that, bro.
He might. He actually might. I don't know. But hey, hopefully
5.
this was helpful. Yeah, hopefully this is helpful for you guys. These are things that we just love talking about. So yeah, we'll keep talking about it. If you guys have any suggestions on topics, feel free to throw it in the comments. We have been reading these comments, so we have some ideas, just not formulated yet.
Kind of just do this
and
on the fly.
yeah, and make sure you join the community. Join the Discord community if you want to chat with us. I work and I have school and also my own YouTube videos full time. So I am not as, we'll say, when I am online, I'm brain dead. So I'm not gonna jump on and start doing bug bounty. But when school's over and I'm done with school forever, I will be hosting like live bug bounty sessions. Until then, you can probably just watch me game or join me in gaming or something like that. We could chat.
Let's do it, bro.
Same with Grant. He's available whenever he's available. Chat with us, ping us, comment, like the video, share, wherever you guys want. If you want to get on the podcast, send us a message. We'll get you
Let's
on.
do it, bro. Shout out to the only Banana God 3115. Said he was talking to someone, the CTO of HEB, who was repairing the computers for CrowdStrike. Shout out to you, man. I used to work at HEB, so I know how often those systems went down. And I can't. They weren't even because of CrowdStrike; they're just poor infrastructure. So shout out to you. Hopefully, you could fix HEB infrastructure because right now it's crying. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, and sorry that that person had to go through that, because yeah, that's torture.
it's trash.
Yeah, and also for the last video, we have both two shout outs, right? Shout out to Bright Path for thanks for the comment. The rise of expensive certifications in cybersecurity. It's kind of like the tech bubble of the 90s.
Mhm.
It was about who could afford the tools and training to get ahead in the industry. So I agree. In the 90s, computers were wildly expensive. And it was about, if you can afford a computer, you can learn about computer engineering. Can't afford a computer, well, you're out of luck. And now computers are cheap. Everyone has them, and anyone can kind of learn. So now we're in the cybersecurity world where it's becoming, if you can afford it, yeah, you're in. If you can't,
Yeah.
well, good luck. So
GG.
I agree with that. And then DIY Sec, our boy,
The one and
in
only,
the
bro.
last video, awesome points of the views. TCM says they think the OSCP is easier. They now give you credentials as assumed breach style, whereas before you would have to maybe do some SQL or some kind of recon to dig up some credentials. So apparently they give you credentials already, and you just have to move around in credentials, and that's easier than starting out black box with no credentials, and you have to obtain these credentials. So that's something new. I didn't learn. I didn't know that. And then just a shout out for the supporting Neswin on his journey in the community. Looks like
Ooh,
my camera
camera
died,
died.
but appreciate you, DIY. Actually,
What is this, episode 1?
episode 1 all over again.
All over again.
But
That's
appreciate you,
awesome.
DIY, for that
You-
comment. Any
DIY
other shout outs?
rules. No, like you said, huge shout out to DIY, and we've been working with him on the side. He's helped me develop a really cool Python process that I don't want to go into it because it's kind of, but it's really cool process. And shout out to you, DIY, and Pat, because Pat's been helping too, man. And I got to get back on that because it's not done yet. But
Yeah, that's
shout out to y'all.
shout out to you guys. Yeah. Helped a little bit, got a little busy. So let me know when you want to pick back up on
It
that.
was just me and DIY, and and then I look at the chat, and Papa's just sitting in there silently listening to it. I'm like, Papa, are you here? He's like, yeah, I had downtown work. I thought I'd jump in. I'm like, bro, what the heck? It was so random.
Yeah, man. I've been learning
Oh God.
um Rego querying. Um and Rego queries are like almost like JSON, but it's for like writing policies. Um
Jeez.
yeah, so I'm not a pro. I actually
Yeah.
just started learning this like 2 weeks ago. So I've been writing policies in a language that I'm learning as I'm learning it.
Well, good luck with that, Papa. All
Yeah.
prayers for you, brother.
Yeah.
Episode 5, man. Thank y'all again so much. See y'all soon with the boy Coat.
Yes, sir. All right. We out.
Peace.